Welcome back to the Football Fan Fanatics Podcast, where Nadine and myself will be talking all things football. We've been so grateful for the support we've received around the world since launching just 3 weeks ago, so thank you very much for listening and watching us, and please continue to do so. In this episode, Nadine and I will be reviewing the knockout phase of the World Cup. The round of 32 is upon us now. In fact, the first game kicked off last night between Canada and South Africa, and although it wasn't the most exciting of games, we're hoping the other 15 will be a treat to watch. We'll be also discussing England's result against Panama and Scotland's early exit, with Clark obviously resigning. So let's crack on with the show. We're now in the knockout phase of the World Cup tournament, and as we record our latest episode, we've had that game already played. Previously, both South Africa and Canada never reached the knockout rounds before, and Canada were forced to leave their home soil, having finished second in their group table. Playing in LA, though, luckily for them, didn't put them off their stride, and Jesse Marsch was very passionate when Canada scored that late goal. But we're going to be focusing on the other games because, as I mentioned, it wasn't the most exciting of ones and there's not much to analyse other than that late goal. But Nadine, firstly, welcome again. What fixture or fixtures are you most looking forward to watching?
Yeah, welcome to you. It's good that we're back on home soil. We were both elsewhere, weren't we, around the world? You were in Greece on holiday. I was in India. Both countries not in the World Cup. How ironic was that? But we're back on home soil. Yeah, that game was really dull last night, wasn't it? I'm so glad that Canada scored before it went into extra time. I don't think I could sort of deal with any more. But what am I most looking forward to is Netherlands-Morocco. That's got to be the tie of the round. You know, James, I'm a massive fan of Morocco, who reached the semi-finals of the World Cup 4 years ago. I mean, Morocco is so full of invention, of creativity. When they get their combination play and counter-attacking right, they look capable of going all the way. But this time, they're up against a really rejuvenated Dutch side. Although the Netherlands failed to win their opening game because they were up against tough opponents in the shape of Japan. And despite that, the Dutch are real contenders, but this could be the toughest game of the competition. So realistically, could face the possibility going out early if Morocco continue on this sort of rampant form. And I think that the Dutch head coach, Koeman, deserves praise for his team selection and very impressed with Brian. Is it Broby's presence? I mean, Sweden.
Yeah, Broby, the Sunderland striker, yes.
Yeah, Broby, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Broby, Brian Broby.
Well, I know. And Sweden, I don't know if you agree, just didn't know how to stop him. So I imagine the Moroccan camp will now be analysing that footage of Brian over and over again to see how they can erode that fluent possession the Netherlands have shown us. But watching Morocco has made me think, James, we've definitely got to go to the World Cup in 4 years' time when I think Morocco, is it Portugal and Spain are the joint nations hosting it. We've got to go, haven't we?
Absolutely. Morocco have been a treat to watch. I wouldn't say they've been the strongest defensively, but in terms of going forward, you know, they scored 4 goals against Haiti. They got the opener against Brazil, beat Scotland narrowly, but won that game, which was all important. So they scored 6 goals. And one, if you haven't seen Morocco so far or you're new to the game, that I think a lot of people have been interested in is 18-year-old Ayoub Boadi, player for Morocco. And I think saw him in that first half against Brazil, the way he dictated that midfield against Premier League international proven players like Bruno Guimaraes, Paqueta, Casemiro. He dictated that game. And although he didn't play against Haiti, they made some changes. For an 18-year-old on the big stage, he was fantastic. And you mentioned Brobbey as well. He's an absolute hunk, isn't he? I don't know if you've seen him. He's huge.
I have, yes. Although I don't want to sort of comment on someone's physicality and how much eye candy they are of a woman of my age. So I'll leave that one to you.
No, my point wasn't so much the eye candy. It was the Moroccan players are going to struggle with him. I'm an Everton fan. I remember he scored against us in the Premier League towards the back end of the game. And James Tarkowski's no mouse in terms of his strength, but he was absolutely outpowered and outthought by Brian Bobby. So aside from that, are there any other games you're interested in?
Well, obviously England versus the Democratic Republic of Congo. But I'm also looking forward to the European champions, Spain, taking on Austria. I saw Lamine Yamal play for Barcelona last year when I was working there, and luckily there was a game on which coincided with my time spent in Barcelona, although not in the Nou Camp as it wasn't quite ready. So it was in the Olympiad Stadium. But even so, it was such a special moment seeing him for real in front of my own eyes. And, you know, I was captivated then by Lamine's skill set and his potential to be a superstar in the same way that Messi and Ronaldo have proven to be. But also impressed that Austria have managed to sneak through into the last 32 in the dying seconds. What a game that was against Algeria, levelling up that game at 3-3. But realistically, I can't see them overcoming Spain. I mean, that would be the biggest upset of the tournament, if so. But I think that's highly unlikely. So how about you, James? Which games in the last 32 are your must-watch games? What's on your list?
Oh, there's many to choose from, but Brazil v Japan immediately comes to mind. Just such attacking talent in both sides. I'm going to start with Brazil. I think Vinicius Junior has been absolutely outstanding. Brazil they certainly in the Morocco game really struggled, and it felt like he sort of clawed them out of a hole in a way with his equaliser, really great strike. But he's been on fine goal scoring form. He's in with a chance of getting the golden boot. And it's felt like he's been the man for Brazil. They've always looked to him. He's been the one where if they've needed a goal or they're already winning, but they need to finish the game, he will provide that quality. And you can't doubt him at the moment. So looking forward to watching him. I'm always looking forward to watching him. And then for Japan, some of the football they play is fantastic. The one thing that does disappoint me with them is it's almost like they wait to concede before they play that really, really good football. Or maybe it's just a mental block, but they're capable of playing the most incredible football. They have 10-minute spells. They did against the Netherlands in their opening game where they were brilliant, the likes of Kubo on show. So for Japan, they just need to have that confidence to be able to play like that for the whole 90 minutes. They're certainly capable of doing it.
Yeah, it's that self-belief, isn't it, I suppose, because
100%.
they probably can't believe themselves that they are so good. It's like going, oh my goodness, we're now good at this game. Whereas once before, you know, the other teams like Brazil, Argentina, Germany were, you know, shoo-ins to reach the final. And maybe Japan just needs to have that self-belief, as you said.
Yeah, and they certainly did that against Tunisia, winning the game 4-0. They certainly had that self-belief. But against Sweden, obviously Alanga's goal was a cracking equaliser, but they played some great football. They really could have taken that game by the sword and maybe scored a few more goals. But outside of that game, I'm also really excited for Norway v Ivory Coast. Both sides have really impressed me, really, really impressed me. Obviously, the likes of Erling Haaland, we already knew how good he is. But for Ivory Coast, Diomande, who's been attracting interest from Premier League sides, has been really, really nice to watch. And just as a team, the way they play, a bit like what I was saying about Japan, when they've got that confidence and play some really good football, they all play for each other. Ivory Coast at the exact same. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. And then just want to mention one more, Argentina v Cape Verde. I mean, who would have thought that Cape Verde would be in around the 32? It's honestly, it's the best story of the World Cup, I have to say.
Yeah.
But I think that story ends, unfortunately. I just think Argentina have too much for Cape Verde. And I know most people thought Spain would be the same, but I think that was a one-off. But nonetheless, whatever happens in that game, I think Cape Verde will look back on it as an incredible campaign. What do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, their 40-year-old goalkeeper, what a sensation. I know he's played a lot outside of his country, I think in Portugal and Cyprus and other clubs around the world. I believe he's 40, and it's kind of like a mismatch on paper when you're up against a 39-year-old Lionel Messi. I think that's Lionel's age. But even so, I think the goalkeeper will go down in history as a national icon in the process if he isn't already. And I think amazing that they've got to this knockout stage. But fair play to them. They're having their moment, but highly unlikely it's going to go beyond the 32. I can't see them getting to the last 16.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the United States as well. Finished top of Group D. They'll now face Bosnia and Herzegovina. I've seen across the media a few American pundits having a bit of dig at Bosnia, saying, "Oh, I don't know where they are on the world map. They're not going to have a chance against us." So it'd be interesting to see if that comes back to bite them. However, America, they did lose their last encounter to Turkey, 3-2. Turkey already knocked out, of course, but America had already qualified. And what was really interesting is Mauricio Pochettino faced a lot of criticism for his team selection. They made, I think it was eight changes they made in the game. And while I guess you could say it was strategical in avoiding suspensions and injuries, do you think that criticism was warranted?
Yes and no. It's not a straightforward answer. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. There are huge expectations on countries and particularly host nations. And the media, I think, were just reflecting that. I mean, there was a lot of hype and discussion going into the match against Turkey around the pressure and momentum of winning all 3 games in their group. But let's face it, the US had created a lot of interest after winning 4-1 in their opening match against Paraguay, and then that 2-0 victory over Australia. Both 2 historic performances, when you look back at the US history, that secured a first 6-point opening to a World Cup for them. So I suppose that 3-2 loss against Turkey, with a goal scored by Turkey in the dying seconds, I think it was the last kick of the game, understandably raised questions about the team that the media had to pose. Otherwise, they're not doing their job properly. And those questions were centred on whether that team momentum can continue against Bosnia in that last 32 coming up on Wednesday. And Pochettino criticised journalists for not congratulating the team on winning Group D, having secured the top spot with those 2 wins behind them. And as you said, fielding that rotated side against Turkey in what they felt was more of an insignificant match. And when he was asked about how the loss would affect his team's prospects, he said in a very sort of uppity way, the objective was to finish first, and we are first. And I think he then went on to say, momentum is a topic that I don't understand. And I'm thinking, come on, Poch. You're experienced enough to know that the nature of the game and of the media, having managed the likes of Tottenham, Chelsea and PSG, so at the highest level, you know what the media are like. So I do wonder, James, whether you think Poch's reaction risks sort of shifting the focus away from their historic achievements on the field. So could this outburst, affect the team's psychological preparation? Or is he just being protective about his team and trying to teach the media a lesson? And maybe we shouldn't look too much into this.
I think he could have avoided the comments that he made. However, I can't see it having a negative impact on the team. If anything, the players will like the fact that he's gone in and defended them, even at the cost of his own good. But what's interesting is he's been offered a lucrative 4-year contract extension to remain the manager of the US men's national team through to the 2030 World Cup. So his current deal expires at the conclusion of this World Cup. So very interesting to see, obviously, how they do and whether he'll continue and take up that offer. The other interesting part was Pulisic returning from a calf injury for the last half an hour against Turkey, which is obviously a great boost for the US's attacking options. So, yeah, I think America will get through that game okay against Bosnia. And for their sake, hopefully play well, shift the attention away from the media and the loss against Turkey. But I also want to talk about England, of course. The Three Lions also had a bit of stick in the media after the Panama game and more notably the Ghana game. But they head into the last 32 after topping Group L, and they face DR Congo, who really impressive again. Yohan Wissa being the main man for them, and also getting a point against Portugal, for example. This isn't a team we should just think that we can just beat like that. It's going to be difficult. The Leopards, as they're known. they look good. Do you think we will show signs of improvement from the game against Panama? Because it was a lot of the time quite lackluster.
Yeah, it was lacklustre. That's a very good word to describe it. Hope so, because it was a really unconvincing start to the game against Paraguay, although not as bad as the match against Ghana, which I've sort of lost the will to live, especially when they kept doing all those side pass movements in the first 15 minutes. And I thought, crikey, I know you've got to be patient, but come on, let's be more positive. And I think Jude Bellingham, once again, was the standout player on the pitch. And unfortunately, he broke the deadlock to put England ahead in the second half off the back of a set piece. But he was also responsible for the assist for Kane to secure the victory for England. And that second goal meant Harry Kane became England's all-time World Cup scorer, taking him one ahead of Gary Lineker. So well done to him. But the crowd was spot on singing Hey Jude at the end of the game. You know my feelings about him. He's a world-class player. But I think, like you, England were below par for long periods of time, and they looked really vulnerable at the back, which is sounding like Groundhog Day. But we've discussed their previous woes in their defensive woes in previous episodes. I mean, if England had finished second in the group, they would have ended up in the tougher side of the World Cup draw, potentially on course to face Spain in the last 16. And England is certainly not tournament ready yet to face the class of Spain. So lucky in some ways that we finished in the top spot of that group. But yeah, James, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts about whether you think Thomas Tuchel made a mistake leaving out Trent Alexander-Arnold out of his World Cup squad. And do England now need to sort of step up for the round of 32 if they have any chance of progressing further in the competition?
I think the fullback position that you mentioned with Trent Alexander-Arnold is really interesting. He obviously left out Lewis Hall, who can play on the left side as well. And I do worry now that obviously Reece James has suffered a hamstring setback, that we don't have that same attacking quality to bring on. Trent, I'd say, is perfect for the sort of the Congos, the Panamas, those tough games where you're going to come up against a low blocker, resolute defensive side where he can put in fantastic crosses. Unfortunately, the likes of Jed Spence, Gerald Kwanzaa, they don't have that ability going forward. So where Trent might be poor in his defensive game, in these sort of moments, even if he came on for 20 minutes, he'd be really useful to have. So I think that could be a miss. It could come back to bite us. But if we do get through these games, I don't think Alexander-Arnold would have played in those bigger games anyway, just because of the great wingers that he would have potentially come up against. But in terms of our defensive woes, as you mentioned, Roy Keane was analysing England after the Panama game and Thomas Tuchel. And what struck me was just how much he's changed the back four. And Roy Keane was saying, you need a back four that's going to be there the whole time, ideally 90 minutes of the same back four. And we've been chopping and changing it a bit too much, which does worry me because it sort of looks like from the outset that Thomas Tuchel doesn't know what his strongest back four is yet, and he's still trying to figure that out.
And thinking about when I used to watch football when I was a lot younger, it was pretty much the Arsenal back four with the England back four. And that, like you say, gave that consistency and teams knew what they were doing. Anyway, sorry, James, carry on.
No, you're absolutely right. And as well as that, the wingers have been, I'd say, poor, substandard. Anthony Gordon, Madueke, Saka, even Rashford, I thought all four of them haven't done enough. Rashford scored a lovely goal in the first game against Croatia when he came off the bench. And obviously Saka's been injured. But the other two in the Ghana game, terrible. Really, really not up to it. And for a team like us, we like getting the ball out wide, crossing it in. You look Bellingham putting a lovely ball for Harry Kane, who scored. So I'm a little bit worried about our wide players too. And we don't nearly have the same talent as the likes of France or Argentina in that aspect. So, yeah, interesting to see what Thomas Tuchel does against DR Congo. A few have suggested Rodgers on the left. Obviously, Rodgers played in midfield with Bellingham and they were sort of on each other's toes a bit too much, sort of playing in that same position. You obviously can't move Bellingham. He has to be there. So maybe Morgan Rogers on that left side, but that would mean 3 different players that have played on that left side if he does play there, which again seems worrying. Who do you think is best to start on that left side?
Oh, gosh, I don't know, because I think we've got this wrong before, haven't we? Didn't we think? I'm just trying to think who would be the best.
We did say we thought Gordon would, after the pre-tournament friendly they did against Costa Rica, he looked good, but he hasn't looked good in the games he's played.
He's not sharp enough. I just don't know now. I mean, because we kind of bigged up some players and actually they haven't performed as we thought they would do. So I'm not quite sure because, Thomas Tuchel, based on his, background, he really has a thorough knowledge of all the players. I mean, I was listening to something that Piers Morgan, who people may or may not know who he is around the world, but he's quite a big media figure. And he regularly bumps into Thomas Tuchel in his local cafe and has regular conversations. And he said the one thing he's realised after 18 months of seeing him on a regular basis, he knows the players inside out. He can do like a 15-minute monologue on all of them. But I'm not sure, James, about that left wing. I've run out of ideas myself. So how about you? Who do you think it should be?
I think Marcus Rashford potentially, just because he's more likely to have that shot from outside the box rather than cutting it back. And I wanted to talk about this actually. England haven't scored a goal from outside the box. Obviously, a goal's a goal. I'm not going to complain if we score as long as we score. But I think we're really missing an opportunity there to score more goals because, again, we talked about last week about how Joe Hart's analysed the ball, it being a bit unconventional and flying in a strange pattern for goalkeepers. And when you look at France, Argentina, Spain, but certainly France and Argentina, both of them have already scored quite a few goals from outside of the box. I'm thinking of Messi, Mbappe, Dembele, Lo Celso, even with a free kick recently. Those players strike to mind. And we're just not taking enough shots from outside of the box. And we can't always rely on just crossing the ball in and hoping that it falls to Harry Kane's head, because there's going to be teams that know that and want to set up against us. So I think we're missing a trick there, and you do need a bit of a mix and match. Sometimes you do need to take a shot from outside of the box. It's cliche to say, oh yeah, it's good for the defensive side to allow that and just have shots from outside of the box, but we need to give ourselves a chance to show that we can do that. What do you think about that, Nadine?
Well, it's an interesting comparison, isn't it? Because when you think about sort of France, their style relies, doesn't it, on individual brilliance and sort of that devastating transitional speed. So they're sort of set up for scoring goals outside the box. And Argentina, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's more about precision passing and sort of carving their way through sort of low blocks. So Tuchel, it's sort of very highly structured, focusing on creating space for wingers and then for Harry Kane to finish inside the 18-yard box. So it's a very different setup. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, the setups are definitely different. I don't think we have that quality that France have when it comes to attacking players, but they've scored 10 goals. We've only scored 6. So they've scored 4 more goals than us. So, and I don't think just because that's the way Tuchel plays, it doesn't mean we shouldn't have a shot outside the box. And that's where I do think Marcus Rashford offers something different compared to Gordon or Madueke. He will have a go from outside the box. And as I said, make advantage of your conditions, and that means take advantage of the ball. And the keepers are really struggling with that. And surely Thomas Tuchel has spoken to the players about the ball and having a shot.
Yeah, and actually, talking about Anthony Gordon, I mean, he's getting a lot of stick from the Spanish media. Welcome to life at Real Madrid, because
Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Yeah. Easy mix up.
I sit corrected. Welcome to life at Barcelona, or regardless of where he was in Spain, you'd get stick, particularly from those 2 big clubs. And he signed to Barcelona in May. And they're probably beginning to think, was that multi-million pound investment worth it? Maybe he's just a bit knackered from a long season, but I was expecting a bit more from him. And we sort of backed him, didn't we, James? And he sort of let us down a bit, but hey-ho, such is life.
And another letdown I'd like to talk about is Scotland. The Tartan Army had amazing expectations before the World Cup. Obviously, winning their first game narrowly against Haiti was a perfect start for them. But the manager, Stephen Clarke, has resigned because of obviously not making the round of 32 and so many disappointed fans. Do you think Scotland were unlucky to not progress, or were they just not good enough?
A mixture of the two, really. On the pitch, defeats to Morocco and Brazil were no disgrace, given both sides rank in the top 6 of the world, don't they? But the manner of those losses left a lot to be desired. I mean, they don't have a lot of tournament footballing history, do they? Yes, they played, I think it was in the Euros, didn't they? So was that right, James? They were in Germany, weren't they?
Yes, yeah, they were in Germany. Yeah, they played in the Euros. They didn't make out the groups there either.
Yeah, and they haven't. But so they haven't got a lot of tournament footballing history behind them. I mean, the win over Haiti for their first World Cup game and their first victory in 36 years was a great start to their campaign. But looking back, they needed to score more goals than that just single goal. The 3 points alone were not enough, so that goal difference has come back to bite them. And I think they should have been a bit braver and not quite so nervy and more on the front foot for that first game, and then maybe it'd have been a different outcome. I mean, Steve Clarke has fallen on his own sword, hasn't he? He's resigned himself as head coach of Scotland. He wasn't pushed, I don't think. But who's favourite now to take over that role? Could David Moyes be the standout Scottish candidate? I know big Duncan Ferguson, who used to play for Everton, he's been talking about that he'd like to see a Scottish person being in charge of the Scottish team, but he would replicate that whatever country. So for England, he'd like an England manager and so on and so forth. But I'm just wondering, David Moyes would be fantastic, but would he really want to leave Everton now? It feels as though he's only just getting started again, albeit the second time round. So, yeah, who do you see taking that position? I mean, Ange Postecoglou, whose name I really made a mess of.
Postecoglou, you're nearly there, Mum. You're nearly there. It's a tough one.
It's
a tough
odd.
one.
All these different names. they just trip off your lips, your tongue. Ange to you and me. I mean, he's been mooted. I'm thinking, really? Can you not get anyone better than that? Sorry, Ange, if you're listening.
No, I agree. I think David Moyes does seem to be the most obvious candidate, but as you mentioned, it's whether he'll want to make that step. Interestingly, the Euros, obviously in 2028, some of that will be played in Scotland. So a chance for David Moyes to lead the Scottish national team in Scotland for a Euros does sound quite tempting. And he's also only got a year left on his contract at Everton. And it depends what the owners think. Maybe he's already had talks with the Everton owners to say, look, we're going to give you another year, but after that, we'd like to continue with our own project. So
Could
maybe
he not do both? Could he not do both?
No, he couldn't do both.
Didn't Alex Ferguson for a while do both? I'm just trying to. Have I got that wrong? Have I dreamt that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think he. Look, if you're playing a FIFA career mode on your Xbox, then you can do both. But unfortunately, I just think it's such a big job you're taking on, and the preparation that goes into these big tournaments, particularly, is very extensive. So, yeah, David Moyes is an interesting one to keep an eye on. I want to go away from Scotland a little bit and talk about sort of the good teams in this tournament. No disrespect to Scotland, but who would you say has been the standout so far?
Well, definitely not England. So there we go, just to balance things up so our Scottish neighbours don't get upset with us. France, without a doubt, France. Yes, I think the first half against Senegal wasn't the prettiest football, but since then they've been everything you'd hope from in a squad. They look good on paper, but they're also good in real life. Even against Norway, when the game meant nothing, they still put on a show. Dembele grabbed a hat-trick. and Mbappe alongside him. There's simply no better attack, I think, at this tournament. And as an aside, good to hear my team QPR mentioned during the World Cup, because did you know this, James? QPR's head coach, Julien Stéphane's father is Guy Stéphane, and he's the assistant manager of the French national team. He's also previously managed Lyon, Bordeaux and the Senegal national team. And Guy has worked closely with the manager Didier since 2012 and was actually on the touchline doing duties for the French match against Norway, with Didier absent due to sort of sad personal reasons. So I'm hoping some of Guy's magic will sort of rub off on Son Julien and then on to QPR. But yes, I'm not holding my breath for that one. And I suppose my second pick would have to be the USA, because I just think they've come on leaps and bounds. And Poch has brought something rare to international football: genuine intensity, that sort of vertical dynamic play. You add in the home crowd behind them and they are a must watch. So yeah, I think France and the United States of America. So James, who have you been impressed by so far? What's your sort of top team or teams?
Well, the first one has to be France as well. I 100% agree with you on that one. Their array of attacking options is quite staggering. And I said before the tournament started, Mbappe is built for World Cups. He's been there, he's won it, he's been in a final and scored a hat-trick, and he steps up in World Cups, and he's done exactly that so far. It's been incredible, the goal scoring that's occurred. Messi's already scored 6 goals, and the record number of goals in one World Cup is 6. So you think that's another record that he's going to break. But Mbappe's not far off, Vinicius isn't far off. Haaland's there as well. There's plenty more games to come. So that's going to be really interesting. And then the other one that's really impressed me has been Colombia. Really strong defensively. They topped their group, considering they had Portugal in their group as well. Unbeaten in the 3 games. They got 7 points, winning their first 2 as well. And Colombia are always a tough unit, tough team to break down. But they've got good attacking options as well. James Rodriguez looked really good against Portugal. So even though he's at an old age, that technical ability, that talent is still there. And then obviously Luis Diaz as well, the left winger of Bayern Munich, is probably their talisman, if you like. So they're really interesting ones. So be interested to keep an eye out on them.
And actually, James, I've just looked up. Alex did manage the Scottish national team, taking over on a caretaker basis following the tragic death of the manager Jock Stein, and he successfully guided the Scots through a playoff against Australia to qualify for the 1986 FIFA World Cup in Mexico. You were just a twinkle in the eye then, so you weren't even born then. That's a long time before I even thought about bring you into the world, James. So yeah, that's interesting. So he did, but I don't know whether that coincided to him managing a time.
No, I'm not aware. I'm not too sure. Unfortunately, as you said, I wasn't around then. So
no, but also I thought I'd say that before loads of people email us saying, "How dare you forget?" 100%.
Yeah, good to get that one in. I'd also like to ask you. I've obviously mentioned Mbappe, but what players really stood out for you?
I think it's a toss-up between Messi or Mbappe. It's hard to believe that Messi is 39 years old, and if this World Cup is his swan song, his last outing, well, what a way to go. I think, his passing range, his clinical touches in front of goal, still up there with the very best. I mean, he is the very best, isn't he? So I think for anybody who sees him live, just make the most of it, because he may not be around for the next World Cup. But yeah, he seems to defy all sorts of playing logic. But if you ask me again in a few days' time, I might switch to Lamine Yamal. I think he's fully fit now, isn't he? So I imagine he's going to play a lot more prominent role for Spain during the rest of the World Cup. So it will be all hail Yamal, if I can get my words out.
Hell Yamal.
Not easy to say, as I've just demonstrated.
Yeah, I would look. Mbappe and Messi are the two, aren't they? I'd stick Vinicius in there as well, because I've already spoken about him. But Mbappe just has that edge for me so far, just because I'd say France had a slightly tougher group than Argentina did. Austria, Algeria, and no, I wouldn't say they're any world beaters, and obviously Jordan were sort of taking part, if you like. They had no expectation of going through, whereas the likes of Senegal and Norway are two very competitive sides. And although Norway did make a lot of changes, Mbappe and
Criticised for it as well.
they were criticised as well as America were. But Mbappe, the teams he's come up against, he's really taken the game by the scruff of the neck and been fantastic. Anyway, now we're going to move on to our best 11 so far from the World Cup group stages. So this will be interesting to see. You guys watching and listening can obviously comment on if you think, oh, we've made some dreadful mistakes in our teams, but we're going to go for it. This is a go. We're going to start off with Nadine. So fire away.
Oh, God. I thought I'd put to bed score predictions. What have you done to me? The best choice 11. I'm going to have so many people getting in contact all around the world because I haven't included. Oh, God, James, this is so hard. This is really tough for me. But I suppose in goal, I'm going to go for the Cape Verde goalkeeper. Is it Vocina?
Vozinha, yes.
Yeah. So just because he's just a national icon. If it wasn't him, I'd probably go for Alisson from Brazil. So I'm going to hedge my bets there. That's the only one I'm going to go for two. Right back, Morocco, who I love. It's got to be Hakimi. Centre back, sorry about this, but I'm going to go for a Liverpool player. Virgil van Dijk, playing for Holland. I think commanding the games brilliantly. And then also, is it Pau Kubasi from Barcelona for Spain? And interestingly, he's only 19. I mean, have you seen him? I mean, you're older than him. I mean, he could be my son. He looks so fresh-faced. And he's been trusted to play every single minute of the game. He's the only player in Spain that's played every single minute of the game in all three matches. And I don't think he's put a foot wrong. So well done to him. Left back, Nathaniel Brown, Germany. I think he's looking good. And he's played at Frankfurt, but I believe he's on his way to Bayern Munich. So I don't know if that transfer's gone ahead or not. There's some sort of delay there. I'm not quite sure what it is.
I think wait for the World Cup to be done, and then that will start to kick in for sure.
Yeah. Centre midfield. Now, I've got a bit of a blind spot here, and I can sense that you're going to criticise me. Declan Rice. He's big, he's physical, but he's also one of the smartest guys on the pitch. Yes, I know he didn't play in the last game. If he hadn't played in all three games, I'd have still picked him. I just think he's amazing at set pieces. He can really change games up, so I really like him.
I think that's your English bias coming through there, isn't it, Nadine?
I've got one more. Attacking midfielder. It's got to be the number 10, Jude Bellingham. Hey, Jude. For England. Yeah. The wingers, I'd go, I mean, you've mentioned them already. Vinicius Jr. playing for Brazil and Real Madrid. Fantastic watching him in Champions League football. Just such a delight to watch as well for Brazil. And then Michael Olise for France. Also Bayern Munich. So, those Bayern Munich's well represented in sort of my lineup. And then the forwards, well, I can't contradict myself. I've already said who my two favourite players are, and they're both forwards, aren't they? So Messi for Argentina, who also plays for Inter Miami. So I'd imagine he's got a lot of domestic support at the moment in America. And then Kylian Mbappe, who plays for France. That would be my lineup. Is that dreadful? Have I picked the wrong 11, James?
No, that's fine. You've gone for a lot of attacking players. So if it was an 11 on the pitch, I'm not sure how well it would do. But
that's why I'm not a football manager. But you give me these really difficult conundrums, and this is something like 20-year-olds think of day in, day out. I'm a grown woman. I've got work to do, bills to pay. I haven't got time to put the top 11 team together. This is the stuff of 20-year-olds with time on their hands.
No,
so
but
go on.
Your selections were good though, so I'm not. Other than Declan Rice, that's the only one I'd question.
Yeah. So how similar? How similar?
Oh, there are some similarities, and with the goalkeeper Vizinha, I've also included Cape Verde. obviously with 2 clean sheets in the group stages. So why not include him? Of course, even in that Spain game, fantastic, and then the game against Saudi Arabia where they qualified because Uruguay obviously lost to Spain. So he's been probably, in terms of the player, the story of the World Cup. My back four, so left back I've gone Gallardo. I'm not sure how you pronounce that one. The Mexican left back.
Me.
Mexico, 3 wins from 3. They haven't conceded a goal yet. And he's looked really good defensively going forward too. So although some people suggest that they had a fairly straightforward group with the likes of South Korea, South Africa, Czech Republic, still didn't concede the goal. So I think that's a pretty impressive start. Davinson Sanchez is next for me for Colombia. I've already mentioned how good I think they've been. They've only conceded 1 goal. So I wanted to include him. Kabasi, as you mentioned, Spain as well, haven't conceded a goal. So although there were a few question marks over their game against Cape Verde, they've still been very good defensively. He's obviously played at Barcelona in the Champions League. I think he's ready, even though he's 19. He's looked really, really strong, confident. And then Molina, right back, the Argentinian right back. Again, Argentina only conceded 1 goal. So there's a bit of a pattern here in terms of how well these countries have done defensively. But so far, those 5 have really impressed me. In midfield, one I really like the look of is Manu Kone for France. He didn't play in the first game, but started the second one against Iraq and played 90 minutes, then played against Norway too, and looks really, really, really good. Young player. I think he's 25 actually, so at that sort of peak age, but looks really good. I've gone Frankie de Jong for the Netherlands. Again, they always seem to have strong midfields and they always seem to do well in the group stages. I think it's something like they haven't lost a group game since 2006. Wow. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure they haven't, which is just some stat. And then in the 10, I've gone Jude Bellingham as well. He's pulled England out of a hole when he's needed to. So he's been fantastic, and I can only see him doing more and more for us in the knockout stages like he has done previously. And then my attack, I think, is fairly predictable. I've not gone Michael Elise because there's just so many attacking players. I really wanted to have him in, but that's why I've gone for 3 midfielders. So Vinny on the left, Brazilian. I just think he's proven it. He's scored lots of goals. Messi on the right. Don't even need to explain Lionel Messi for how well he's doing at 39. And then Kylian Mbappe up front. So that's my 11. Would you disagree with any, Nadine, or are you happy with mine?
I don't disagree. Sounds much more balanced than my attempt. But as I said, you've probably got more time to ponder these kind of things. And it'd be interesting to see how that shifts in a week's time, where there are 11. And of course, it's going to change, isn't it? When we're now in the last 32, and then as we head towards the last 16. But sounds good, James. You know what you're talking about. And I think you've gone for a little bit more diversity than I have as well, and maybe sort of thought through the balance of the team. Like you said, mine is fairly attacking, isn't it? So it could be lots of goals scored on both sides if maybe my team played against your 11, although that wouldn't work either, would it? Because we've got some similarities. Anyway, good choices. Well done.
Well, listen, this time next week it'll be really interesting to see what shocks or what goals have been scored or any more criticism in the media over certain nations. There's so much to unpack, and all games coming thick and fast. So thank you, Nadine, for joining me, and thank you for listening to the listeners. Thank you for listening to this week's Football Fan Fanatics podcast. You can follow the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen online. In that way, all our episodes will drop right into your feed. And you can also watch us on our Football Fan Fanatics YouTube channel. We've just set up our socials too, so please find out more about us on our new website, footballfanfanatics.com. Thanks again, and see you next time.